Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you a recent reads video. First off, I'm just going to address my face. I'm not going to apologize for it because I shouldn't have to, and I don't actually know how well it's showing up on camera, but I had an allergic reaction on my face this week, and this is good, really good compared to how it looked a couple of days ago. My skin, particularly around my chin and the side of my mouth, is very red and dry and inflamed, so yeah, but I want to film videos for you guys, so I'm powering through. So it has been a week since I filmed my most recent reads video, and I have read 7 books since I last checked in with you guys. So let's jump straight in and talk about all of the 7 books that I managed to complete in this past week. So the first book I completed since I checked in with you guys last is Origins by Kate Tiernan. It's the second book in this bind up, the 11th book overall. So this one, so in the 9th book that I mentioned last week, not the 9th, the 10th, in the 10th book we had a perspective shift. And then in this one, we go back to the original perspective that we had followed for the first however many books, and we then get 2 characters reading kind of a diary, but we get it from that perspective of the character in the past. We basically just have this whole story is set in the past. It is kind of relevant to events that have been taking place in this series and is kind of trying to expand on things. So I liked kind of getting to see a bit more of what this was about. I can't really go into details because we're so deep into the series, but at the same time I didn't think it was super necessary, and I didn't super love this new perspective. I didn't really like the main character in this one, but it was still okay, still enjoyable. I gave it 3.25 stars. I then read a whole bunch of audiobooks. So the first audiobook I finished was Mine by Susie Fox. This was narrated on audio by Ainsley McGlynn. This is a adult thriller novel. It's an Australian book. It's basically about this woman who has a baby, and she wakes up, and she can't remember having had the baby. Remembers basically that she was in an accident and that she was going into labor, and she wakes up and she's already had the baby, and the baby was born premature, and so it's in one of the incubators or whatever they're called, and she is taken through to see the baby, and she's immediately that's not my baby. She just knows it's not her baby, but no one believes her. The husband doesn't believe her, the doctors don't believe her, etc. So this book is interesting in that we're getting this play on, is she mentally unstable? Because obviously, even if she doesn't have a history of being mentally unstable, postpartum issues can cause not just depressive issues, but there is a lot of documented cases of postpartum psychosis, and particularly when it comes to not connecting with your baby, and then so because you don't connect with the baby, thinking that baby isn't yours, but it's a part of the postpartum issues that can be. So we've kind of got this thing of, is that an issue? Is this a psychological issue? Or is this isn't her baby? Is this not her baby and no one's just believing her because obviously she's a woman, she just had a baby, she must be having postpartum psychosis, right? So you kind of got that. That's kind of, the gist of the story, what we're playing on here. I guessed how this was going to end very early on, and I don't mean this to sound like a total wank and I'm totally patting myself on the back, but I don't think most people would, but I just in my head was immediately I bet this is what's going to happen, and then it did. And then I was thinking, I wish that they'd done something like this instead, but then I was thinking, I think almost any ending that this had, I would have been annoyed by. I don't know how this book could have ended and not been annoying, but I didn't really like the ending of this book. I think it is strange. It has very strange implications, in my opinion. I also, basically through the whole novel, just wanted to punch the main character's husband in the dick. So there was that as well. But it was enjoyable. Like I said, all those psychological nuances and is she psychotic? All of that type of thing. I did find all that very, very interesting. So I gave it 3.5 stars. I then listened to a very short little audiobook, Dear Ijiwala, A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So for those of you who don't know, this is just a non-fiction essay with basically the premise of it is that Chimamanda's friend basically asked her, how do I raise my daughter to be a feminist? And so this is the essay that she's written based on what she told her friend about how to raise a little girl to be a feminist. I liked this. I like anything that's super feminist in nature. I didn't love this as much as We Should All Be Feminists. For me, there was nothing super groundbreaking in this, but it was still very important. It still got a lot of important messages. So I did still quite enjoy it, and I gave it 4 stars. I then listened to another audiobook, My Thoughts Exactly by Lily Allen. So this is Lily Allen's, it's kind of a memoir, but she says in like right at the start of the novel, she's like, this isn't a memoir in the way that it's not just like her story in like a linear fashion of then I grew up and then I did this and then I did this and then I did this. It's kind of her looking at key areas in her life and like kind of saying what she's learned, kind of, I guess. Now in listening to this is narrated by Lily Allen herself. I should mention that Dear Ijiwala is narrated by my girl January Lavoie, who I haven't heard narrate anything except the Diviners books, and she's like my favorite narrator. And the only thing I have to say about Dear Ijiwala is that it's only an hour long, so it wasn't enough for me to really like enjoy January Lavoie's narration. But My Thoughts Exactly by Lily Allen is narrated by Lily Allen herself. So I didn't know that much about Lily Allen going into this. I know some of Lily Allen's music, particularly It's Not Fair, and I think because of the nature of the song It's Not Fair, I had just assumed that Lily Allen was a feminist, which she is. And so I think I'd always kind of just been intrigued about her kind of because of that. And then, like I say, listening to this audiobook, I realized how little I actually knew about her life. Like, I didn't realize that she came from kind of a famous type of upbringing, in that her dad was a comedian and an actor and her mother was involved in film producing. But having said that, she didn't come from a very privileged background, but she did come from a background where drugs and alcohol and all of that was very much a part of the everyday, and that obviously played into her as an adult, particularly being involved in the entertainment business and the music industry, where drugs and alcohol is just, it's rife. So I think the thing that I liked most about this, well, there's a couple of things. It's very, very feminist in nature. Lily Allen is a feminist, and she talks about a lot in the music industry and how prejudiced it is against women, all of that type of thing. She also is very honest. It felt very raw in parts. I mean honest in the way that she is not, as far as I can tell, like obviously this is from my perspective, she's not trying to paint herself as this totally amazing person. She is very honest about her shortcomings and the mistakes that she made. Like, for example, the man that she was married to, her first husband, who she had her children with, she is very frank about when she went on tour and she cheated on him like a bunch. And she's very frank and open and honest about that. And she like admits like that it was a mistake and all of those things, but delves into why she did that, like why it happened. Not in any way of making excuses, but just from a, like more of a psychological perspective. What are the things that led to her making those decisions? She also, I didn't know this about Lily Allen, and I guess kind of trigger warnings for, trigger warnings for like drug and alcohol abuse and all of that type of thing, but also trigger warnings for child death. Lily Allen went into labor with her first child. I think it was at 25 weeks, like very early. And the child unfortunately ended up dying while she was in labor. And so she had to give birth to the stillborn baby basically. And that was the first child. And she then, like even this I found very interesting and very raw and honest. Like I said, she then basically in very, very quick succession had her 2 children, like her 2 live children that she's got now. And she talks about how she wouldn't change that decision because it's given her the children that she's got today, but that it probably wasn't the best decision that she could have made in terms of her own psychological perspective, that she definitely rushed in to having those 2 children as a way to recover from, but not in a healthy way, the death of her first baby, and how not dealing properly with the death of that baby, the issues that it caused in her marriage. And like I say, I kind of touched on some of that earlier. So I don't want to get into everything that happened in the book, because I feel like I'm raving on about this one a little bit too much. But what I'm trying to get at is that it felt very raw and honest. And she just talks a lot about how, and it's like, I guess in some ways it can be seen probably as a little bit woe is me, like she's famous and she complain, like, you know, there is stuff in there about her complaining about the media and all of that type of thing. But I think that she's pretty like open-minded about the whole thing. Like I said, and it just felt very raw and honest. It's basically the gist of what I'm saying. So I really, really enjoyed it. And in the end, I gave that 4 stars. I then read The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is translated from the Spanish by Lucia Graves. So this is the sequel to Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, but it is more of a companion novel. So it also deals with the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, but that's kind of the only real thing that links the 2 books together as far as I could tell. It has been a while since I've read Shadow of the Wind, but you could definitely read these as standalones. Like, it's not a direct sequel. In fact, this one is set prior to, because I think Shadow of the Wind set in, I can't remember the exact period, I want to say 50s, but I could be wrong. But Angel's Game is set in the 20s. And so I literally don't even know how to explain to you guys the plot of this book. It's basically about a writer, and at the start of the novel, he's writing for a newspaper, and he ends up becoming an author, and he is writing kind of short, like kind of pulpy, like crime, you know, drama-y crime, like fun type of stories, but he wants to write his own kind of like literary, you know, masterpiece type of thing. And he ends up he moves into this house that is very mysterious, and there's a lot of mystery and stuff coming up. That is a very, like, not a great synopsis, but I really don't know how to explain what this book is about without getting into what happens until like halfway through the book. So that's all I'm going to say. Carlos Ruiz Zafón's writing is so good. It's one of the main things I loved about The Shadow of the Wind. His writing is just, it's real, real good. This book is very like mysterious and creepy and all of that. Loved all of those vibes. The problem I had with this book that I didn't have with Shadow of the Wind is that this book is very confusing. Particularly in the end, like third, I was reading it going, what is happening? Like, what is happening? And then the very end, I really didn't like. So it definitely didn't live up to Shadow of the Wind for me, but I will definitely continue. I know there's a 3rd book. I've requested the 3rd book from my library. I believe there's a 4th, but as far as I could tell, there didn't appear to be an English translation of the 4th. So I'm not sure if that's still coming, or I don't know. But there's at least one more book, and I think they're companion. I don't know if they're eventually all going to tie together. I don't really know, or if it's just the Cemetery of Forgotten Books that's kind of going to be the thread, but they are more companion-y novels. I don't really know, but I do want to continue on to the next book because, like I said, Carlos Ruiz Zafón's writing is just really, really good. So I read that. I'm just going to get rid of my low power mode. Low battery warning. So I then read Eclipse by Kate Tien, and the last book in this bind up, book 12. So I've only got one bind up left to go of this series. So this one, we now have dual perspective. So we're back to the perspective of the like main character that we've been following all throughout, but we also have another perspective, and we're alternating kind of in chapters between the two. But I didn't mind that. It worked for kind of the purpose of like what this particular installment is all about. I really liked this one. We're really dealing with the main crux of like the overarching plot that's been going on for 12 books. We really get into the meat of that in this one, which I appreciated because we're 12 books in at this point. Having said that, I don't know where we're headed now for 3 more books. But I'm intrigued, like I said, so I did really enjoy this one, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And then the last book that I read recently, over this past week, was Embrace Yourself by Taryn Brumfitt. This is another audiobook and is narrated by Taryn Brumfitt herself. So this is another, well, it's a non-fiction self-help type book. Taryn Brumfitt is a person who went viral. She posted a before and after picture of herself, but not the typical before and after picture. You may have seen this when it happened, when it went viral. This was a few years ago. It was a picture, the before picture was actually her the typical after picture in that she was like a bodybuilder and like she was entering fitness type competitions. That was the before picture, and then the after picture is years later when she has more accepting of her body and her natural way that she looks. And she posted that as a before and after, and it absolutely went like viral, blew up the internet. She got a lot of hate, a lot of support, all of those types of things. And she ended up making a documentary called Embrace. And this is the book. So it is very much just like a self-help body positivity type book. I think that this is a good kind of beginner novel into the body positivity like movement, but to be honest, there were certain parts of the book that I found a little bit annoying. Like Taryn Brumford herself, the way that she says, narrates certain parts of the books, I just found a little, just kind of grated on me. I found a little bit irritating. That's definitely like a preference type of thing. I say nothing overly groundbreaking, but any book that is about women accepting themselves and accepting their bodies. She is also very open and like talks about like women accepting themselves sexually and, you know, needing to know their own bodies and all of that type of thing, which I really appreciated, which you don't necessarily see in a lot of body positivity books, that, you know, if you're going to love your body, you have to love all of your body type of thing. So, and you know, about how much stigma there is around women's vaginas and all of that type of thing. So that isn't necessarily in a lot of like body positivity books, but it was in there, so I appreciated that as well. But like I said, there were just parts of it that I found a little bit irritating. So I gave it 3.5 stars. So that's it. Those are the 7 books that I've read the past week. I'm currently reading The Couple on Cedar Close by Anna Lou Weatherly. That is a NetGalley book. It's a thriller. It's basically about this couple who at the beginning we know are having like marital troubles, and then it's kind of jumps like 3 months in the future and the wife is waiting for the husband to come around. She's pretty sure that he's coming to completely end the marriage. They've been separated, and she has got a drinking problem, and she wakes up. He doesn't turn up to dinner. She gets very drunk. She basically blacks out, and when she wakes up, the power's out. And when she manages to turn on the light, she realizes that she's covered in blood and her husband has been brutally murdered, but she doesn't remember anything about it. But obviously the police think that she's done it, like he's coming to divorce her, now he's been brutally murdered, and it's basically following that. We get a lot of allusions right from the start about an accident that has taken place at some point that kind of turned the tide of their marriage, and one of the big mysteries of it, apart from who killed him, is what is this accident? Like, I'm very intrigued about that. So I'm only 25% of the way through that at the moment, but very much enjoying that so far. So hopefully that will be a really good thriller. So that's what I'm currently reading. That's what I have read this past week. Anything else to report? I don't think so. It's what I've read. It's what I'm currently reading. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below if you've read any of these books that I've been reading or what you guys have been reading lately. I would love to know. Please like the video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. But that is all I have for this video today. Bye guys.